If we wish to communicate the sounds of different languages, particularly in writing, we need a common set of symbols in which to do this. No one writing system can represent the sounds of all languages, and do so in a way that's consistent and principled. English certainly cannot do this. English orthography, well, an alphabet, is a relatively opaque one. This is to say, there are often more than one symbol for each sound, and more than one sound that corresponds to each symbol. This creates a level of ambiguity between the symbol and sound that makes it a poor choice to use to demonstrate the sounds of different languages. George Bernard Shaw pokes fun at this ambiguity by suggesting that one could spell fish, G-H-O-T-I, taking the F sound from the G-H in rough, the I sound from the O in women, and the sh sound from the TI in nation. To solve this problem, a group of linguists formed the International Phonetic Association in 1886. They gathered in Paris in 1888 to work on their solution. They wanted to find one system that could describe any sound that any of the members would encounter. The range of symbols needed to be concise enough to be learnable, but comprehensive enough to cover all the sounds in any of the languages of the world. The majority of the linguists were familiar with Romance languages and Latin-based alphabets, and this heavily shaped the selection of symbols. Most English speakers will be familiar with most of the symbols. There are two main principles that shape the decision-making process of this group of phoneticians. 1. The alphabet would be universal. There would be enough symbols so that every sound in every human language could be represented. The alphabet would be unambiguous. Every sound would have one symbol, and every symbol one sound. Their work was also shaped by a number of assumptions. They do not focus on certain aspects of speech that vary from individual to individual but are not linguistically relevant. For example, it's not linguistically relevant that your voice is higher or lower than mine. What is linguistically relevant is that sometimes your voice goes up when you're trying to give stress or emphasis to a word. Another assumption, they assume that speech can actually be described as a discrete set of speech sounds, and this seems obvious to us, but in fact sounds influence the sounds around them in ways that make it not as clear as we might think. They assume that the distinction between vowels and consonants is a useful one, and this distinction again is not as categorical as we might think. Some consonants such as Y and or W and Y, not Y and W, often written as Y and W in English, but not necessarily in IPA. Some sounds like W and Y resemble vowels in many different ways. They also assume that stress and tone need to be indicated, but should not need to be indicated as part of the consonant and vowel segments. For the most part, you will be making use of the consonant and vowel charts when learning the International Phonetic Alphabet. And I'm going to go over each one of these in a separate video, but briefly I'm going to introduce them. The consonant chart is organized much in the same way that the discussion of the vocal tract was introduced in the previous video. The column labeled bilabial refers to sounds made through closing the lips. The second column refers to sounds made using the lips and teeth. The third to the tongue touching the teeth, and then so on. And as we move through these columns from left to right, we move further back in the mouth and then down into the throat. So these columns are the different places of articulation, the parts of the articulatory system that become engaged in making this particular sound. The rows from top to bottom show different degrees of closure or blockage of the airstream. At the top are the stops or plosives, which involve a complete closure and then a release. As we move down the table, we see closures that are loose or places where there isn't even a complete closure. The vowel quadrangle refers to how close to the roof of the mouth the tongue is, how far back it is, and whether the lips are rounded. The top left symbol shows the vowel that is made when the tongue is close to the top of the mouth and far to the front, and that's the vowel E. The vowel immediately to the right of it involves the tongue in the same position, but with the lips rounded. Now, the top right symbol shows an oo sound, which also involves the tongue close to the top of the mouth, but now further back. The vowel at the bottom right involves the oral cavity fully open and the tongue far back, aw. And finally, the vowel at the bottom left is ah, made with the oral cavity open and the tongue toward the front. Most of the signs needed to describe English or French will be familiar to you. Your task will be to remember that this particular symbol, when used as an IPA symbol, refers to this sound. Okay, now a couple of IPA symbols that you're going to need to know to write English, to write and read English. The first new symbol to memorize is this symbol here, which has the same sound as TH in the word thin. It has the th sound. And it has a voiced counterpart, which looks something like that, and has the same sound as the TH in that. And you can hear the difference between th and th, and you can feel the difference in your voice box. You can feel the voicing. Now, another symbol that you might have to learn looks something like this, and it has the same sound as the SH sound in shut, but it also has the same sound as the double S's in pressure and the sound of the SH in wish. It also has a voiced partner, this sound here, which appears in the middle of words like beige, or at the end of words like beige, and in the middle of words like measure, but doesn't appear at the beginning of words in English. Now, these two sounds combine with other sounds to make the two affricates, ch and j. And the ch is the sound that is at the beginning of words like the beginning and end of the word church. You can see it there and there. And at the beginning and end of the word judge. When I say the end, remember that phonetically this doesn't exist at all. So these are the two affricates. There's this symbol here, which usually in English is represented by an NG, but in IPA is represented by this N with a hook on it. So there we have the word king, and we have the word ring, and we have, what word do we have here? We have the word thing. And there's one more symbol that you might have to learn, and it is a symbol that's familiar to you, but in the International Phonetic Alphabet, this has the sound of y. So this word is yak, not jack.